What up, what up, what up? How's everybody out there in the podcast world? We back again with the T-Bass and Shamar show. My name is Shamar.
My name is T-Bass.
How you doing? Today we got a good show for you. We're going to do some Negro leagues. We're going to do a tribute to the Negro League.
Yeah. Black baseball history.
Black baseball
or black ball,
history.
as it was termed.
Man, this is going to be a good show. Everybody, please hit that subscribe button at the bottom for us, please. Thank you. Appreciate that. But
we want 1 million viewers. We want a million subscribers. We're going to start with 1 million. Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about it, man. I don't know. What will be the first talking point on the Negro Leagues?
Well, okay, so this subject is coming up because I've been kind of into Negro League history for probably the past 25 years. But no, I got into Negro League history back in the 80s when it was hot and it was first coming out. And I saw some old school Negro League jerseys done by Ebbetsville Flannels, which the jerseys behind us are Ebbetsville Flannels jerseys. They do the best work in the industry with regards to reproductions of authentic Negro League jerseys. The fabrics, everything, down to the numbers, the number size, everything. Both them and Mitchell and Ness, they both do quality work. But of course, back then I was a starving college student and I couldn't afford them. Things was $85. They were $85 a jersey back then, right? And I was like, dang, $85, I want it, but I don't. Man, that's a lot of money, right?
Yes.
Well, guess what? The Ebbetsville jerseys are now selling for about $225 or $250 a jersey. Nice. You're gonna pay that. The jackets are off the chain. It's like $500 or $600 for the jackets.
You think you're looking fly too?
No, they're good. No, they're excellent. So that's what kind of got me into Negro League history. And I was like, wait a minute, the Baltimore Black Sox. Who is this? I've never heard of this, and I was just intrigued. And so I bought some memorabilia back in the day. Some of my homies got me for it because we used to snake each other. We used to play this game called the snake game where you may come to my crib and you may like something, right? So you would tip on it from me and I'd be like, damn, he snaked me. He snaked me for my piece, right? But anyway, so I remember I've got a cap and a t-shirt and I got the Baltimore Black Sox because that name drew me. I was like, the Black Sox. Wait, this is not the Black Sox scandal. This is the all-black team. And so then I start learning about the Kansas City Monarchs and the Homestead Grays. But I'm going to tell you what blew my mind when I read my first book on Negro League baseball. And I do have that book right here. And it was called Invisible Men. And so Invisible Men by Don Rogenson is an incredible book. And it tells the story of Negro League players. It talks about their journeys. It talks about how they couldn't go to necessarily white establishments when they were barnstorming.
Determined to play the game, teams of black ball players began to tour the country on their own. It was called barnstorming, but this business of baseball was not easy.
They were succumbing to booking agents and losing money and players jumping from team to team. That's when you saw this idea of pushing for the formation of a quote-unquote Negro League.
It talked about them eating bologna sandwiches. And I'm like, wait a minute. These dudes are eating bologna sandwiches and playing at the level that they playing on. Right. This totally redefines sports for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got to think differently about Michael Jordan now. We got to think differently about, all the major league players now, because guess what? These guys didn't have no, nutritionist.
Right, they didn't have the jet.
Baseball wasn't easy.
Baseball as a whole was a tough life because where we were treated. Sometimes we go 3 and 4 days without being able to take a bath because you couldn't get no room, sleep in the bus 3 and 4 nights. You had to stay to yourself like you was an animal.
Right.
Flying from city to city.
Listen, man. So when they were barnstorming, them guys, sometimes the bus would break down. Sometimes they had to, just drum up money just to get their buses fixed.
I was tripping on how locked in the black community was at that time.
Right.
So you have full communities that's expecting these guys to come.
Right.
So you had churches, you had hotels,
absolutely,
all of which were black owned.
Right.
Stores.
Right.
You had basically community that would accept these guys in,
and they would
when they come in and give them top-notch treatment.
Yet despite all the hardships they encountered on the road, life for these men had many wonderful moments.
We actually went to live in different homes if we had to stay overnight, and the black people in the community, they took us in, and we had the greatest food in the world because they were the greatest cooks in the world.
It was a great life, stayed in some of the best hotels in the world. They just happened to have been black. Ate in some of the best restaurants in the world. They just happened to have been black. That's Negro League baseball. We had interleague play. We had interleague play in the 20s. We would go east for 2 weeks and play the teams in the east, and they would come west for 2 weeks and play so the people could see all of the baseball players.
They was tearing up some soul food.
But when they was on the road, bologna sandwiches.
But you bring up a valid point in that there were people supporting these players.
Right.
And so when they pulled up into town, the church would receive them. And guess what? We would have fish fries, and we would have people would come out and go get plates because they're going to see the Kansas City Monarchs versus the Philadelphia Stars tonight at a night game. Well, guess what? Okay, so fact. Night baseball was innovated by the Negro League.
Night baseball was another black invention. The first major league game was in 1935 in Cincinnati, but the Kansas City Monarchs started playing night games in 1930.
The mastermind behind night baseball was J.L. Wilkinson, the owner of the Kansas City Monarchs, another of the more successful franchises in the Negro Leagues. One of the few white owners in the league, Wilkinson gambled on portable light towers that were able to bring night games to fans everywhere.
They've played the first night game in St. Louis, the first night game in Detroit, Pittsburgh. So some of the white owners said, hey, that's a good idea. Look, they get a pretty good crowd here at night.
It was a major asset to them in terms of restoring some of the financial strength and stability to their team and to black baseball.
Right.
By the Kansas City Monarchs. Right. They actually developed the first lighting system at night where baseball could be viewed at night.
There's portable lights. They created portable night lights.
So right.
Right.
And think about the production, bro.
Man,
so now you're pulling those things along, and then you're setting them up. You got a generator there.
Right. But see, it was so successful that everyone around them said, you know what? We need to do that too. That makes money.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you saw the major leagues saw that. Right. And was like, oh, heck no, you know what? We need to do that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, we can make money off that. No. Monetize it.
No, absolutely. So Negro League baseball, let's talk about the beginning. We're talking about the late 1800s, so maybe 1885. 1885, you have a group of black players called the Cuban X Giants.
Nice.
Playing. This is another fact about Negro League baseball that people should know, is that actually baseball was not segregated when it first got started. It didn't actually get segregated until black players started coming into the integrated leagues, and Moses Fleetwood Walker was the first professional black athlete to play pro ball. Moses Fleetwood Walker, not Jackie Robinson.
Right.
And then what happened was white players saw that black players were starting to come in, and white owners wanted black players to play, because guess what? We're some of the best athletes on the planet at this sport. And white players basically start telling the owners, hey man, if you hire these black players, we're not gonna play. And so that's actually how the color line got put up in baseball.
By the late 1870s, some black ball players began to play in the white leagues, like Moses Fleetwood Walker, who played for the Toledo Blue Stockings in the American Association, a major league at the time. This made Walker the first African American to play in the big leagues. But as the Jim Crow segregation mentality took root in the nation, black ball players were soon squeezed out of these all-white leagues.
a gentleman's agreement ultimately banned blacks from playing on white professional teams. There was really no written doctrine of any kind, just a verbalized agreement.
By the end of the decade, the barrier is in place, racial segregation is the law of the land, and separate but equal is now the rule.
They wouldn't let us play in the major leagues. This was the era of segregation.
Which was up about 50 years. Jackie Robinson reintegrated baseball, and that was 1946 when Branch Rickey from the Brooklyn Dodgers said, "Hey man, we're going to bring this young kid in. It's time for a change," And our community had launched a movement to get baseball integrated, and we were looking for integration across the board anyway. That was the beginning of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Actually, like people really don't understand that the integration of baseball was the beginning of the civil rights movement.
I think it was not just
officially. No. It was like for real.
What I was what I'm saying is there was a number of sports. Baseball was the more prominent because
it was America's game.
It was America's game at the time.
Right.
But you had all sorts of different sports and different activities that were segregated.
Right.
And baseball became
because basketball was segregated back then,
right?
Right. We lived in a segregated society.
Right. And sports was used as a tool to start to try to get the whole segregation movement.
Right. The whole nation, moving forward, and so that's some real history about just black baseball in general. And yeah, man. So we talk about barnstorming. These guys would barnstorm across the country. Guess what? And then they became so sought after that they start playing overseas. Right. So they start playing in places like Cuba. Right. They start playing in places like Venezuela.
Right.
Puerto Rico.
Right. I was listening to one of these fellas, and he was
Satchel Paige. We're talking about Satchel Paige. We're talking about Cool Papa Bell. We're talking about Josh Gibson. Right. These guys. We're talking about Buck Leonard.
Right.
And guess what? They went abroad and they started seeing that they dealt with less racism overseas than they actually dealt with back home.
I was going to mention that. That was one of the points that Brothers was making at that time, is that, like, you know what? It felt good to go into the South, into Mexico, into Puerto Rico, into Cuba.
Yeah.
Because to them, it felt like a weight was lifted.
Right.
Off their shoulders, because they didn't have to deal with the same sort of racism that they had to deal with here in this state. I'm not saying they didn't have to deal with it,
right?
But they didn't have to deal with it the way they had to deal with it, like Mississippi, like the Deep South.
Because listen,
when the season came to an end, many Negro League players bid farewell to the long bus rides and segregation and headed south to a warmer welcome.
We could go to Mexico, we could go to Puerto Rico, we could go to Venezuela, and we could go to Cuba. Cuba was our favorite place to go.
This island nation, whose baseball development was parallel to America's, and where these legends first plied their craft, offered the men a freedom they couldn't find in the States.
Once you got to Havana, I always felt better. Emotionally, mentally, it was like, it was almost like somebody taking a weight off of your back.
The ironic thing about it is you got paid well, and you were treated far better than you were treated in the States.
And it gave us a chance to play against many of the major leaguers, plus all the great Cuban baseball players. It was a real testing ground for you, so it was wonderful.
There are some stories, so you talk about they went over. They had some all-stars go over to play for the Trujillo team, and this is down in South America, and they held them at gunpoint. They were like, you guys don't get to leave until this tournament is over, and if you do leave, we'll keep, but come over and play. We'll pay you, we'll pay you big bucks, way more than you're making in America. Some of you guys are going to pick some wives over here because some of the guys got married too.
Man, they made more money.
Yeah,
was treated better on average. Not saying that they,
right.
Like they wasn't treated like they was black somewhere else, because they were.
Right.
But on average, they were treated better. They made more money. I wouldn't imagine why you wouldn't go get a wife down in Cuba.
You met somebody, right?
Why not? Because ultimately, if I'm correct, what would happen is when the Negro League ends here in America, then you go down there to pick
and you play in the summer,
until it picks back up here.
And guess what? MLB players start doing the same thing. Yeah, they start doing the same thing.
Yes.
So the interesting thing was that a fact that Michael brought out is that he did some research and he found out that in the beginning of the Negro Leagues there was over 600,000 fans.
Yeah.
The first year. That sounds about right to me.
Pride also held true for the league and its mostly black ownership. The teams drew more than 600,000 fans their first year. Quite an accomplishment for a fledgling league.
It was a tremendous achievement. Most people are under-financed, under-publicized, but they still went out there, and because of the quality of players they had, they made it a success.
And that laid the groundwork for all the black leagues that would follow. The Negro National League remained viable until 1931, when it became another casualty of the Great Depression. But the success of the league was a vibrant example of black entrepreneurship, and that left its passionate followers hungry for more.
So how Negro League baseball actually got started was a hotel hired Negro League players or black players to entertain the guests. So this was a team that was put together. No, it's real talk.
Entertainment.
Right. It's entertainment, right? It's sports entertainment. So people would be at the hotel and they would watch black teams play against each other. This is actually, this is one of the how black baseball, organized black baseball came to be. And so what time frame are we talking? We're talking like 1850, 1860, 1860. Okay, so then black teams came and they start forming their own teams. So you had a few black owners, but guess what? Most of those teams were white owned because we didn't have the money to finance them.
Right.
Because equipment costs money and all this stuff. Travel costs money. So a lot of Negro League teams were white owned initially. That's the history of the sport. But so 1920 is when Rube Foster came along, who had been a player in the Negro League, so he knew Negro League baseball well. He was a pitcher, and Rube Foster organized what we call the formation of the first Negro League organization.
Enter Andrew Rube Foster, large in stature and impact. Foster was a dominant pitcher in the early 1900s and went on to own and manage the Chicago American Giants. And in 1920, at the same time Babe Ruth was hitting an unprecedented 54 home runs, Foster brought together 8 teams to form the first sustainable black league, the Negro National League.
He thought if they organized the Negro Leagues, what would happen, he thought the National League would take a black team and the American League would take a black team.
Although that would never happen, the Negro National League would delight black fans for years to come and provide African-American youngsters with inspirational new role models.
I believe it was the Negro National League that he formed first, but I know it was Chicago was a part of that. Chicago was a part of that league. And so then you had the Negro American League, you had the Negro National League, right? And then eventually you had something called the Eastern Color League. So it was different variations of Negro League baseball that went on. And you had many colorful characters like Cool Papa Bell, who was one of the fastest men in baseball.
Oh man, they had a saying
who
about
played
that
for
dude.
the Pittsburgh Crawfords.
This was the funniest saying. I was rolling. I said, "Come again."
Right.
Said that the man, Cool Papa Bell, was so fast that he would go hit a switch and he would be in bed before the lights was off.
Before the lights went
I
off.
was
Kool
like,
Bell
oh,
was so
wow.
fast he'd turn off the lights and be in bed before the lights went out. That's how fast Cool Papa Bell was.
I love it, boy.
Cool Papa Bell would go from first to third on the single.
Man, so if it took more than 2 bounces,
right, he was at third.
You might as well throw it to the pitcher,
right,
because he was gonna make it to first base.
Right,
Period.
right.
And that's just how it was.
There were men in the Negro Leagues whose baseball feats were almost mythical, like the legendary speedster Cool Papa Bell.
I broke every record. Anybody running. Jesse Owens, all of that. I broke every record and running. He beat me running straight, 100-yard dash. But going around the base, I could beat him.
I've never seen nobody that could run and play the position like this man could play. If the ball hopped 2 times to the shortstop, throw it back to the pitcher, because he wasn't going to throw him out.
Satchel Paige, who played for everybody, and who even today, some of these modern day athletes, how they all about the bag nowadays. Well, guess what? Satchel Paige was definitely about the bag, because whoever played the highest price, that's who he was playing for that year. And teams were fighting over him. They were like,
105 mile an hour fastball.
Man, they say by the time it got on you, it looked like a little pea. Satchel was so cold. He was like, bring the outfilders in. Bring them in. He ain't hit nothing today. They ain't getting nothing.
Man, just hear a whistle.
Yeah.
But perhaps the 2 men whose legend still lives on in our imagination, even today, are the duo we know simply as Satchel and Josh.
Who was the greatest pitcher? Or who was the greatest ball player? But he was in that category. He is the fastest pitcher. He threw the ball faster than anybody. Nobody threw the ball faster than Satchel Paige.
Satchel was not only the best pitcher of the Negro Leagues, he was really the greatest superstar. Everybody in America knew Satchel, not just people who watch Negro League baseball, but white fans too.
If nothing else, Satchel was probably the most colorful showman in any sport, and this was never more evident than in one of his classic confrontations with Gibson.
Satchel said, "You know what, Josh? I believe you're the best hitter in the world. I know I'm the best pitcher in the world. We're going to see just who's the best."
With a runner on first in the 9th, and with Gibson still 2 hitters away, Satchel proceeded to delight the crowd.
Satchel said, "I'm going to walk Easterling. I'm going to walk Buck Leonard. And I'm going to pitch to Josh." I said, "Oh, man, don't be facetious."
And with the bases now loaded, the duel got underway.
"I'm going to throw you some fastball. I'm not going to try to trick you." Boom, strike 1 by right there. "I'm going to throw you another fastball, but it's going to be a little faster." Bam! Strike 2, belt high. He said, "Now, Josh, I'm not going to throw any smoke at your yoke. I'm going to throw a P at your knee." Boom! Strike 3, threw that ball knee high, about 100-mile fastball. Josh didn't move the bat. The ball game was over. He walking off the diamond. You know, Satchel 6'4", stretched out like I ain't 7 feet tall. I'm walking with him. He said, "You know what, Buck?" I said, "What?" He said, Nobody hit Satchel's fastball. That was Satchel."
I played with the Baltimore Eli Giants, and we had another catcher in the Negro National League, Josh Gibson. In my opinion, the best hitting catcher I have ever seen.
He was boyish and he had charisma. You loved to be around it. Opposing players liked him. Pitchers liked him, even though he'd kill a pitcher, He just was a big, lovable kind of a man. People they congregated around him because he was that good.
How good? The tales of Gibson's prolific home run exploits vary, but he just might have been the greatest slugger of all time, white or black.
I am convinced that if Josh Gibson had been playing in the major leagues, could very easily have broken Babe Ruth's 60 home run record.
Josh Gibson, the Black Babe Ruth.
Hey, man, woo.
Josh Gibson from the Homestead Grays.
And one brother said it.
He was only like 16 or 17 when he started playing professional baseball.
Who's this?
Josh Gibson.
And one cat said it would be better said that Babe Ruth was the white Josh Gibson.
Right. Right.
That's how good Josh Gibson was.
Right. I mean, he hitting out of the stadium. Out of the stadium.
Well, that's it. We're going to go out with don't talk about it, be about it.
Babe Ruth was my idol because that's all I seen in the movies was Babe Ruth. But when the Negro League come to town, they would come in, they would be clean, they would be dressed nice. And I said, I want to be just like them.
I just wanted to be a Negro Major League Baseball player. Those guys were the epitome of everybody who had any imagination about wanting to be something in life.